Alright guys, welcome back to the next video in our web scraping in Python series. In this video, we will learn about request library. So we actually use request library to work with the HTTP, URL and links in web scraping. The reason we use request library is because it is a high level library and it is more recommended than urllib. Alright. So I'll show you how exactly you install it and how we go through request library. So let me take you to my desktop, and here what I'll do, I'll go to CMD, and in CMD what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually install request library. So I'll say pip install request, and while doing this what I'll do is I will check for the version. The latest version is 2.31.0. So what I'll do, I'll go back to pip request and I'll write pip request equal 2.31.0. And if you see, it's already installed. Now what I'll do, I'll close this and I'll go back and open my VS Code editor. I'll start a new file and I'll go for a Python file. Now I'll just zoom it for you. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to import the library. So I'll write import request. And now what I'm going to see, I'm going to do a response function and I'll ask it to get the URL. So what I'll write RESP equal request, that's the name of the library, and get, and now I have to add the URL. So I will go back to codes to scrape and I will take this URL. Let's get back to our VS Code editor and add it here. So now that we have added it, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to check for the status code. We are actually following whatever we did in the earlier videos with the urllib library. So I'll ask to print the status code and I'll write print resp.status code. And now I'll just run this and it will ask me to save the Python file. I'll save it and then we'll see the results. So I'll say testing web scrape here. And I'll see it. So now if we see, we have the status code which says 200. So when it says 200, it means we have a good link. Alright, I'll proceed with the function. Now what I'll do, I will ask to actually print the content for us. And I'll show you how the byte contents looks like. Then we will actually move it to UTF-8 encoding. Alright, so I'll say print content. And now I'll run it again. So if you see here, this is how exactly the byte contents look like. Okay, so what I'm going to do is now I'm going to ask it to convert it back. So I'll write print resp.utf-8. And now what I'll do, I'll run it again. So now we have the perfect indentation which we were looking for, and it's not in byte, it's encoded. Okay. Earlier it was like this, so we don't have the indentation part. Now what exactly happened while going through all this is we can actually ask the request library to do that part for us. Instead of running an extra command and asking it to encode it from the byte, we can actually ask the request library to do it. For that, I'll show you what we have to write. We write print response.text instead of content. So let's see what it does for us. I'll just run it. And if you see, we still have the same result. Now why it is happening? Because this library, which is actually automatically reading the character encoding specified in the header. It is actually using that and it is converting it back to us with the indentation. So that is one smart part on the way request library play with us. And if I show you, give me a second, I'll show you that also. So I'll show you how exactly headers have the character encoding specified and how request library is using it. So let me run this. And all right. So if you see here, it's already mentioned it's using UTF-8 current length. Everything is mentioned. The library is reading all this information. And based on that information, the library is actually using indentation and presenting the result to us. So that's a very smart play on the part of request library, and that is why it is highly recommended to use request library instead of urllib, which is not that high level library for web script. In the later part, we will also see other libraries coming up which are really good. Probably one more library I'll try to cover. But this is what actually important, that we understand how exactly the things working behind the scene. All right, I think that is all for this video. I'll see you in the next one.